Hello, everybody. I'm Josiah, and I'm here today with Coach Brown from the football team, defensive backs coach. So, Coach, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got here today.
Well, I'm originally from LA County. Grew up playing football since I was 7 years old. Got two older brothers, got two sisters and a little brother. So I come from a big family. Most of us played sports. So just grew up playing sports, getting involved, trying to do a good job of staying out of trouble. And football was one of those things.
Yeah. Would you say that football was kind of an escape from that, however life was, if it was tough or not,
Well, my experience was good, but I think my dad, he grew up in a tough environment. So for us, it was an opportunity to change the cycle and do something different. And that's what football allowed us to do, to have structure, to make sure academics was important. And it was a big part of who I am. Like I said, I always tell the guys all the time, football don't save your life, but the lessons that you learn through football do. And that's what football did for us. It gave us a foundation to strive for something and make sure we do the right things.
Yeah, that's great. So how much would you say family and culture has really helped you progress through your career, and not just your football career, but even your career now as a coach?
I think it means everything because, like I said, I've been through a lot of experience, good and bad. And for the most part, I just paid attention. So when you ask me my experience, why it's so important, I think because nowadays, everything is about scholarship. Everything is about, can I get to the league? And the one thing I had was a foundation of what are the values that you believe in? And that allowed me to be a good football player. It really didn't talk about NFL, didn't talk about college. There was a certain foundation of values that I had, and that allowed me to be the person I am. So trying to instill that in my players has been important. Instead of worried about the end result, try to worry about the foundation that you have that allows you to be successful, whatever it is that you want to do.
Yeah, I like that. Talk to us a lot about, setting the standard, and, I know what that looks like in the football, for you. What does that look like in football and outside of football? Like when it comes to your family and your personal time, like what does that look like when you're setting the standard? And
well, I think you have to know, you have to make a decision first what you want. So that's a big deal. I think a lot of times you go in and you're allowing somebody else to make the decision for you. So when you talk about what is that standard for me, well, the standard for me is family's always been important. So I'm married, got a son. I have to spend that time with them, right? I'm a coach and I have to spend my time with my players. So I try not to use one as an excuse not to do the other. I just make sure they both get done. So that's an important part. When I'm home and I'm taking care of family. And when I'm at work, I'm at work. But as my players, they're all my family. So if the phone rings, then I need to get there. But I try to do a good job of making sure I'm doing it, making sure I'm spending time with both. And when I'm there, I'm focused on that. And when I'm somewhere else, I'm focused. So I spend a lot of time, again, what is the values that I have and what is the pillars of my life? And I try to make sure I live those.
Excellent. So, football was obviously a big part of your life. When you were younger, did you think that was going to always be your career? I mean, obviously now, you're still involved with it, you still have a love for it, but when you're young, was this always the outcome that you thought you seen yourself?
I knew I was going to be a coach. I knew that.
Yeah.
I knew that. I knew I was going to be a coach. Like I said, I started coaching when I was young. So I just fell in love with it. The ability to help kids. I started coaching when I was 16 years old, coaching basketball. So to see kids develop and see them grow every single day, it was just, that's what's fulfilling to me. Everything else, I tell the players, the DBs all the time, my job as a coach and what I stand on is to bring awareness and growth to every student athlete. That's it. Because most of the trouble that you have with a player has to do with awareness. That's it. And if they grow every day, then guess what? I've been successful. Nothing else, not making it to the league, not getting all conference. It's to bring awareness and growth to every student athlete. Because I've never had a problem with a player that was aware of himself. It's never happened.
Yeah.
And if they do that, they're going to continue to grow and become the person that they need to be when they leave the place. So that's what I try to get to the players every day.
All right. So obviously, you know, you love helping kids, you love being a mentor. Was there any struggle in starting your career, you know, or like, you know, maybe it could have been, you know, not coaching at the place you wanted to coach, or making a decision to leave a certain group of players that you didn't want to, but, you know, you needed to, you know, any type of struggles that you had, you know, through your career?
Well, coming into the coaching profession, it was not hard.
Hmm.
And the reason why, when you do the right things, people see.
Yeah.
When I got into coaching, I didn't get into coaching college because I made that decision. My DB coach actually said, you're going to come back and you're going to start coaching because of what I did as a player and who I was as a person. Now, when you talk about leaving players, that's always the toughest thing.
Hmm.
I had to leave Northern Arizona, the toughest thing I had to do. Right? It might be a time where I have to leave here, but it's never something that I feel bad about, because when I'm coaching, I'm all in.
Yeah.
So when I leave it better than I found it, I have no regrets. I don't expect to be here for 40 years.
Hmm.
And if I do, awesome. But my job is to impact. So if I do that, when I walk out, yeah, we're going to have an emotional or look at each other. I can't believe coach is coming. But when you build a relationship with a player,
Hmm.
it's forever if you do right.
Yeah.
So even when I walk out the door and I say, hey, it's time for me to do something different, my guys still in Northern Arizona, they can still pick up the phone and we can call, have a conversation. And a lot of them still do.
Yeah, that's good. That's awesome. I really feel like, you know, if you ever leave, I feel like I do have that relationship with you. And I feel like, you know, you have made an impact in my life. And, you know, as far as, you know, you want your players to, you know awareness, you know, what else do you want them to take from you, you know, as a mentor? Or is that it, you know?
Oh, I think I've told one of my players before that I'm always trying to figure out what do they need before they leave me.
Hmm.
And sometimes attitude. I need to make sure I get it in check as much as I can before they leave. Because when you really pay attention to your players, when you know they have something that they're struggling with and they leave you, they still gonna struggle with it. So all players is individually, they have something different. And I'm trying to make sure that that thing that's gonna get them either in trouble or that thing is gonna make sure it have it harder for them to get to where they want to get to. I'm trying to do my best to use the game of football to teach them those lessons. So when they leave, they understand what coach told me. I might not understand it now, but when I hit that adversity, I'm gonna remember what coach said. So it all depends on what the kid needs. Everybody needs something different.
Hmm. No, most definitely. Next question. Who is someone who inspires you and why?
My dad, that's easy. My
Yeah,
dad
your
and my
dad.
older brother. My dad and my oldest brother. Those are the two that the biggest impact for me.
Hmm.
So my dad, again, grew up in a tough situation, and he changed his life, and he impacted a whole generation. So for me, when you talk about giving back, that's because I'm thankful every day. Thankful every day. Because if my dad continued to do the things that he was doing, guess what? I wouldn't be here. And I'd be in a bad situation. I wouldn't be able to give back. And then my oldest brother, because he set the standard for what it looks like. And he made sure that no matter what I did, I always competed. I did the best I can. I respect everyone. And that was his standard for me. And it always, no matter what I did, to this day, 34 years old, my older brother call right now. Yes, sir. And I got to make sure that the standard that he set, I'm still living to that.
Yeah, that's awesome. You know, you talk about it's about leaving the place better than you found it. What's one thing that right now you're doing to, you know, make sure that you, when you leave this place, you're doing everything you can to leave it better than you found it?
Well, I think if I leave right now, it shouldn't change.
So you talking about the leadership?
The leadership, the culture, it shouldn't change.
Mhm.
And I think that's when you understand you've done a good job. If I leave today, the defensive backs, the culture, the things that I instilled, it should last for years after.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to see. I don't want to leave and then everything changes. If I did my job and I instill certain values in the players, they should be able to carry it on. And then whoever comes, they should be able to add to it. but shouldn't go backwards. And that's what I'm trying to make sure, that no matter what, leave, there's a certain standard that's going to leave, that's going to last for a couple of years before they have to reinvent themselves and do something.
Yeah. So you're an incredibly accomplished, as a player, coach, captain, whatever you are in life, husband. What is one thing you are most proud of?
Most proud of, I would say, fighting through adversity. Going into my senior year of college, I battled with anxiety, and I never quit. Never quit.
Yeah.
And I was able to deal with a lot, and I never made an excuse for it.
Mhm.
And I did the best I can with what I had at that time. And that was the most important thing that I did. I just didn't quit. When I go back to the foundation I told you about, I had a certain level of foundation that I had in my life, which allowed me to get through it. And then there are some things I had to learn about myself that allowed me to get through it. But that's why I say the foundation is so important, because when you go through your worst times, you have to have something to fall back to. And when you don't have that, it becomes tough. So what do I mean by that? I've never drank or smoked a day in my life. So guess what? When it's at my worst, if I did, I wouldn't have made it. So there's certain things where I say foundation, when you have that and you go through something with adversity like that, you have to have something that you stand on, that you believe in, to allow you to get through it. Because life happens to all of us.
Yeah. That's no doubt. Yeah. The ups and downs are inevitable. It's about definitely about keeping that balance. And what's one way you incorporate balance, especially having to deal with or let me rephrase this. What advice would you give to somebody that's dealing with adversity and anxiety, especially a lot of us athletes put a lot of pressure on us, and that we put a lot of pressure on ourselves, and that creates a lot of anxiety and to perform well and to perform, and sometimes it doesn't happen. What's your best advice?
Well, I would say this: my anxiety was not due to the stress of somebody else's expectation.
Mhm.
So my anxiety, when it came up, I had a panic attack out of my sleep. So I thought I was dying. And then that's where mine came from. I realized I had a fear of dying.
Mhm.
So that is where I had to learn. That's the stuff that you don't think about when you get things and you move so fast as a football player. You compete, you do all these things, and you never sit down and deal with the things that you're afraid about, because you don't usually know yourself. So the one thing I would tell most guys, I told them during the pandemic, most student athletes did not struggle because of anxiety. They struggled because they didn't know their stuff. And they had to finally sit down and learn who they really are.
Mhm.
So I would tell every student athlete, you have to know who you are, give yourself time to be in a quiet place, to those things that you're scared of, the things that bother you. You need to deal with those things, not wait till something happens. So you have to slow down. As student athletes, we move fast. Class, sports, family. We do all those things and we never learn what we're really dealing with. So you have to be able to slow down. I'll tell you the biggest advice is slow down and have some things. Don't get away from the things that make you happy.
Yeah.
Because what happens is, as soon as you hit adversity, you stop doing the things that brings you fulfillment. You stop doing it.
Mhm.
It's like me, you go through, you stop playing football. Well, the football make you happy. So if you stop doing it, it ain't gonna make you feel better.
Yeah.
So I would tell you to make sure you slow down and continue to do the things that make you happy. Then the other thing is you have to continue to learn. Because the more you learn, the more you educate yourself, you're really gonna be able to figure out who you truly are. Because the older you get, it doesn't matter the values that your parents gave you.
Mhm.
When you sleep at night in your pillow and you're by yourself, you figure out that you don't believe everything that your parents taught you.
Yeah.
So that's why you need time to yourself to be able to experience and think about what do I really value and what's important to me.
Would you say moving away from college really helped you break out into who you were and, believing those things that, who you really are?
I think adversity did that.
University.
I think adversity,
Mhm.
when you don't quit, adversity allows you to really figure out who you really are. That's really what does it, not leaving home. Leaving home wasn't hard.
Mhm.
I didn't have any problems with leaving home and being in different states. Like, this is what I do. My brother's like, don't come back home, go get it done. But when you hit adversity and you're away from home, that's the difference. Not being away from home, it's hitting adversity and being away from home is something that really, really bothers most of us. And that's when you have to figure out who you truly are, because your parents are not there every day and you can't quit. You got to keep going.
They ain't gonna be there forever either.
Nope. And their job is, and that's why you asked me the question as a player, as a coach. A parent job is to get you to a place where you can live without it.
I never thought about that.
That's their job, because one day they're gonna be gone and you gotta be able to survive
Mhm.
without them. You have to think about all the things that they taught you, and that's what's gonna carry you through.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm gonna open it up to anybody that has any questions. Anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I mean, I really like how you talk about like values and establishing that. So I guess my question is like, what aspects of your life do you think really like helps you define your values? Like whether that's other than like family and like your sport, how else do you kind of go in and define your values for yourself?
I think I've always had, I think when I went through adversity, I started reading a lot more. I started being more aware. And I think the more and more I start understanding, I start reading, the more I'm able to have standards, not that were just given it to me, but I understand what they mean now. There was times where I did stuff, but I didn't really understand what it meant. And I think now, when you talk about family, you talk about commitment, you talk about competing, you talk about being the right person, being respectful, all those things. That is where I try to do. I just try to be a good person. That's it. I don't try to be perfect. I try to make sure I'll be accountable for what I do, but I don't try to be perfect. I just try to continue to grow every day and be a good person. So I never try to, most people ask me, is it God? Yeah, I believe in God, is this, but I just try to be a good person. And if I do that, and I work at myself every day, I feel good in who I am. So every day I just try to be a good person. I try to help and I try to be the best I can. And if I do that, I feel good about it.
That's awesome. Thank you.
I wanted to ask, like, what were some pivotal moments that led you to be a really strong leader? I think like sometimes it's hard to find guidance in how to be a leader for your peers, especially as you get older throughout college. You're like, oh, what happened to everybody that was above me that I looked up to? And now I'm the leader. Okay, like how do I do that in an appropriate way that will influence your peers, and also like maintaining that like friendship, but also this, I need to lead the team correctly, but not like suppressing them and making them feel inferior, but balancing all that within leadership.
Well, there's something good about Coach Brown and some things that's bad about Coach Brown. So I've been a natural leader, probably. I've been that since I was young. So it comes a little natural. But I think the thing that some people value making sure everybody is happy. And as a leader, what I'm trying to do is do the right things, lead by example, and say things when I need to, and hope that they follow. And if they don't, guess what? There's nothing you can do. Because you can't make them do something they don't want to do. So when you put that pressure on yourself to do it for them, you can do it. So even as your peers, when you lead by example and you say things when you need to say it, you shouldn't feel bad if they're not following. You should just try to do a good job of setting an example. But the biggest thing as a leader, you have to make sure you do what you say you're gonna do. And whatever you ask them to do, you gotta make sure you do it.
Mhm.
And then when you don't do it, guess what? You're human. Show up the next day and you do it again and you do it again. So I think the pressure comes from other people's expectation in you as a leader. You cannot lead somebody else's way. I think that's where most people get in trouble. If you're not a talker and you start talking a lot, it's not gonna last for you. You have to be able to be a leader in your own way. And every coach wants everybody to be a leader or the best player to be a leader. And that doesn't necessarily work because it takes time. But everybody can be a leader. It just, there's different ways to do it. For me, I was more lead by example. But when I open my mouth, most of the time people listen. So it was a little different for me, but I think from a leadership position, you just want to set the example, show up every day, do the best you can. And when there's something that needs to be said, that's out of line, you got to be able to say it.
I was wondering do you feel like you learned and growed more as like a coach, like leadership and coaching, or more as leadership as like a player aspect?
Great question. It's a great question. I think I'm a way better leader as a coach than I was as a player. And the reason why, that's why I asked that question, I thought it was a great question. Sometimes I was so far removed from my peers because I was so focused that it was hard for them to try to maintain the level that I was at. Because I didn't do a lot of playing. Like everybody asked me, was it hard going from playing to coaching in the next year? It wasn't hard for me because I don't really play with the guys when I was a player with them. So I think as a player, as a coach, I became a better leader because I had to be a little more emotional in understanding what they felt compared to being a player. As a player, I was in attack mode all the time. As a coach, you can't do that. It's not personal when it becomes players. You cannot be a fight all the time. You have to really listen and pay attention to what they need. So I would say I became actually a better leader as a coach than I was a player, because as a player, I was just on all the time. And that sometimes that's good, but sometimes that's bad. You got to be able to feel like they can be next to you and that be able to ask questions. As a player, I don't believe they know I'm tough, but I'm patient. So they're able to come and ask questions and feel like they heard. I don't know if that was the case just as a player. I think I was just moving. So I had to do a better job of that, I would say, as a player.
I wanted to ask, what's one or maybe a few things you wish you knew when you were our age than you know now?
Well, just ask that question one more time.
I wanted to ask what's something or a few things you wish you knew when you're our age that you know or very experienced in now.
I would say, my wife get on me a little bit about this. People, you're never going to accomplish anything without people. And I think you learn that more when you go through something, that you really have to be connected to people. Even though you feel like, man, I can accomplish this thing, I can do that. You don't accomplish anything without people. And the one thing I would have done a better job of is just being more connected to people and being a little more expressive with who I was. Because now I speak And I'm just gonna speak freely. But most of the time, the person I am, most of these dudes don't hear me talk unless I stand up. And I pull them to the side. So the thing that I would do differently, I would make sure that I'm building the proper relationships. And the other thing I would do is, what I would tell you, I didn't necessarily go through it, but I would tell you, this generation is dealing with a lot of pressure. Because everybody wants to go to college, everybody wants to be in the league, everybody wants to be this big thing because of social media. And I would tell you, you need to decide what really makes you happy. That would be my number. Decide what really makes you happy. It doesn't matter what your mom, your dad, your coach says. You have to decide what really, really, truly makes you happy. And that does not mean you get to quit. That just means you have to have the ability to say, Mom, Dad, Coach, I respect you. This is who I am. And this is what I want to do. And this is what makes me feel good about myself. I think that's important. Most of the time, you don't realize that until something is taken away from you. I just had a conversation with one of my former teammates. I seen him out recruiting. And he said, man, I didn't even know who I was when I stopped playing. And the reason why he didn't know who he was, because he said he didn't have no foundation to stand on. His whole identity was football. And when that's taken from you, he said he didn't know what to do. So you have to do things outside of your sport, got to connect with people, and decide what your expectation is for yourself. And that should be the only time where you're upset at yourself, is when you don't meet the expectations that you put on yourself.
Yeah, that's amazing. Another question I would have, or I have, is like, when you get discouraged about, because I know sometimes when people are chasing their dreams and it gets to a time where it's like really tough and you get discouraged, what do you tell yourself to kind of get you through those tough moments?
It happens.
All right.
It happens.
Mm-hmm.
I think when you think about that and you say, man, it's going bad, I think when you realize life happens to everybody, and you say, at one point in time, you need to prepare yourself for adversity to happen. So when it happens, you look at you say, it happened. Now what do I do? But I would always say, in my darkest days, I always knew I was going to get out. I always knew I was going to get out. So when I'm walking, I say, I got it. I got it. I got it. I got it. And that's it. I just try to get up every day, take one foot in front of the other. Because I think the thing you learn is when you're in your darkest, the good thing about being in the dark, you can either run back or you can keep going forward until that thing opens up. And when it opened up, you figure out you went a long way. And you're trying to figure out, how did you go a long way? Well, the reason why you came a long way is because you kept moving. But usually when it's light, you're looking left, you look right, you're looking everywhere, and you're getting distracted. When you're in the dark, you just keep going forward, and then all of a sudden you get out and you say, and I came a long way.
Mm-hmm.
Came a long way. So just keep moving one step in front of the other. But I think the thing is to acknowledge the fact that you struggle. Acknowledge the fact that you hurt. Because the one thing you try to do is not acknowledge. I think that's where it's the hardest thing to move forward, because you're trying to say, I shouldn't feel this way. When you acknowledge that you do feel that way, you keep moving forward, life is, and I'm proud of you because I know a little bit about your story.
Oh, thanks. Hey, I tell myself the same thing too.
So I'm proud of you. And I should be asking you questions how you got through it, but that's just what I try to do. I just try to make sure when those things happen, it might be a player, it might be something else, that I can be a person there to try to move and help moving forward.
Keep moving, yeah. Anybody have any more questions?
I feel like I got a lot of insight.
Yeah, I know.
Thank you for this discussion, man. I was honored to learn a little bit more about you and seek some more wisdom. You know,
Well,
I think we learned a lot here.
I thank you for taking the time to do this and put this together. Because the one thing you learn is when you being asked questions, you also getting wisdom from you. And the opportunity to get wisdom from you, opportunity to get to know a coach on a different level. You realize we're both human.
Exactly. Like that was the main reason why I wanted to create the series, because like, you know, it's nice to see what you do like on the field, but I think it's also amazing to like pick your brain and kind of know just how you got here and just some of the things that you've gone through to be able to motivate the student athletes you work with. So thank you.
No, thank you. And you need me, you got my information.
Yeah.
Somebody that you can talk to. If I don't have an answer, I try to get it to you.
Mhm.
But if you just say hello, need something, I'm willing to be there for you.
All right.
You're my coach now.
Right. Well, cut the camera. Thank you. Oh wait.
Yeah, it is nice to hear from other coaches too. It's like, I know we all